Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Delina Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. Okay, today I have with me Pastor Wade Moore. He is the founder of Urban Prep Academy. He's also the founder and pastor of Christian Faith Center. I'm so honored to have you on our podcast today. Pastor Moore, thank you for being with us. And please tell me a little bit about, let's start with Urban Prep. Tell me a little bit of your story, why you started a school as a pastor.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. And I've been excited about this and excited about the work that you're doing with this. And just overjoyed when you told the story there at the WISE meeting. Oh, wow. Why did I start Urban Prep? Wow. Number of reasons. Number one, I see it as ministry. I started it as an extension of our church ministry and really had wanted to start a school inside of our church building. That was the goal, to start a Christian school and inside of our church building. Then the opportunity came to purchase a different facility, which was already a school in Northeast Wichita. And so we purchased that building and we started a school there. But saw it as ministry. And when I first came to Wichita, and I got saved and got in church, I became a believer. The church had a Christian school in it. And I was not familiar with Christian schools. I never knew anything about a Christian school or the impact. And I thought the pastor of the church had invented Christian schools. And I thought, this guy is brilliant. What a brilliant idea to have a school inside of a church. And I said, one of these days I'm going to do this.
Wow.
And so, and I saw the impact that it had on children and how their lives were being transformed. And that really got to my heart.
I love that. That's so great. And I love how the Lord had already impressed, like years before, that, it seems like he was calling you and impressing on you to start this school. You thought it was going to be a school within your church building at the time. And then he provided an actual school building. That's just incredible. I mean, school can happen anywhere. We know that. And I love, and it's beautiful to see school models that are inside of a church building. And I'm pretty sure you have that currently. Is that right? Like,
yes.
Now you've expanded.
Yes. And having that vision years ago, and then had purchased a facility outside of the church. And now we have a school inside of our church building, which is pretty exciting. All those years, but we have one inside of our church facility.
Amazing. So tell me, what was the timeline for this? When did you, first of all, let's go back. I just love, to hear a little bit your conversion story. And so you got saved, and around what time was that? And then when did you become a pastor? And then from there, when did you decide to launch the school?
Yes. So I got saved, and in 1989, we talk about the 1900s. We're like, man, that was a long time ago. Here we are in 2024. So I got saved. I was in the military, And I came to Wichita, and somebody invited me to church.
Hmm.
And I went to church, and I gave the Lord my life in 1989.
Hmm.
And children just always have been drawn to me. And I don't know why, but everywhere I go, kids are just drawn toward me. And so I started working with children in the church. And I remember working with some boys whose mothers who were come from single mother homes, taking them out on the weekends, fishing, hanging out with them and everything. And so I was in a pretty large church. And I remember that Sunday morning, the senior pastor came to me and he said, I want you to pray about becoming our youth pastor.
Hmm.
Now, this church has 1,000 or so people in it. And
Wow.
he says, I need an answer tonight.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. And so that was in 1983. I mean, 1993, I'm sorry. So 4 years after I got saved. And so that night, I said yes
Hmm.
to youth ministry. And he said, we're going to try it out for 90 days to see how it goes. And 90 days turned into 9 years.
Wow.
And in those 9 years, we built a very healthy, vibrant youth ministry.
Hmm.
And I just always had this vision to really work with children full time. I started going into the schools. I was very active and going into the public schools with my
Hmm.
students. We did Bible studies in the public schools. We had a teacher that would let us use their room during lunch. We invited students. We did Bible studies in there, and we just continued on with the gospel. But this passion to have a school
Hmm.
where children are there with us Monday through Friday, full time, just never left me. And
Hmm.
so years later, after we started our church, I was youth minister 9 years. And then the Lord called us to start our church here in Wichita, Christian Faith Center. And when I started the church, now I'm dealing with adults, I'm dealing with full families and everything. And I'm thinking, okay, so my time of working with children is over. Now I'm focusing on families, and we're focusing on building families and all that. But of course, families have children.
Right.
Yes. And children have needs. And I had that experience as a youth pastor. So then all of a sudden, I find myself starting a school working with children and youth all over again.
Oh my goodness. It's like
Yes,
coming full circle, huh?
yes, yes. And we wanted to start a school. We had a school in our church, but it was not our school. We
Okay.
were giving this church a Christian school. We was giving them space in our school.
Oh.
And so it didn't go well for them, and they decided to close their school. And so I said, we'll wait a couple years before we open a school in our church facility. Well, in the meantime, a closed Wichita's public school building became available,
Okay.
and we went ahead and purchased it, and we opened the Urban Prep Academy in 2014.
Wow.
Yes. And,
How
and, and
exciting.
so always, yes. And something unique about Urban Prep is that, when we were praying about the school and what type of school we were going to open, I wanted it to be a Christian school, with
Mhm.
the Christian curriculum and all that. And presenting that to different pastors, community leaders. I was president of the Greater Wichita Ministerial League, which was about 40 churches, the majority of them African American pastors right there in the in the community. And the feedback that I was getting was that it was first of all, it was going to be the first time anybody had did this, and so that trust factor was not there.
Mm.
And they thought that I'd be recruiting their children to come join our church when I was just in it for the education part of it.
Mhm.
And so we looked at different ways of doing the school. If we start a Christian school, some kids may say they can't go to a Christian school. Some kids may say, well, that's not for me. Some pastors would not want their children to go because of doctrinal issues and all that. So we decided to be a private school ran by Christians.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
by being a
that's,
private school ran by Christians, it worked for us.
I think it's great. I think it's really interesting. I get to visit various school founders, and learn their story and their model and how they set up. And I can really appreciate the diversity, and I understand, like, with everyone's origin story and their unique situation and the community that they're serving. I think it's great to just be able to be flexible with that. And I do hear that quite often, that there are Christians who the Lord calls them to start a school, and they think, okay, is it going to be a Christian school? Do I like broadcast this as a Christian school? And in doing so, am I going to maybe possibly like eliminate some families, some potential families that might come, or they might feel disqualified or just hesitant about coming to a Christian school. And then others who would say, oh yeah, we're going to be outright Christian and we're going to be, clear about that. Others would just say, we teach biblical principles, but we don't necessarily advertise as a Christian school. And I think both approaches are really great. So
Yeah, and it's worked very well for us. We've built some great relationships in the community by doing it using that model. Families have really come along. There are some Christian schools to where they're more discipleship focused. You have to meet a certain criteria.
yeah, maybe sign a statement of faith or something like that.
Yes,
Right.
something like that. Our school is more evangelistic.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
where we really reach out to whosoever will. And being evangelistic, we don't have a certain doctrine that we preach. We preach Jesus, we teach Jesus, offer everyone Jesus, but we encourage them to really be involved in their church. And so we have children and families from different churches. Some of them that we have been able to minister to now attend our church.
That's great.
And have been saved through our church. So it's a great
Wow.
model that's worked for us.
That is so wonderful. I'd love to hear any stories or examples that you have to share of the impact that you've had in children's lives and some of your students' lives. And of course, our ultimate goal in Christian education, or as Christian school founders, is to lead children to the Lord. It can be outright, or it can be settled through relationship and through providing a safe place that they see the peace and the love of Christ. And we're the hands and feet of Christ to them, and that brings them to the Lord. Do you have some examples of, that type of impact you've had in students' lives?
Yes. First of all, being a school led by Christians, every morning from day one, we do what I call morning motivation. And we have a 20-minute inspiration every morning with our students. They come into the doors. We don't know where they're coming from, what they've had to deal with. And so we don't just send them to the classroom. They get a free breakfast. And then we gather in our media center and we do morning motivation. So morning motivation consists of a 20-minute inspiration to where we will give them the word of God for the first 20 minutes every day. And then we will pray. We will all pray together. Any special prayer requests, we'll pray for families. We'll pray for our students, our teachers. We'll pray for the community. And then we'll dismiss our children to class. But we do that every morning from day one when we started the school. We've never missed morning motivation. So we do that. And then throughout the day, our teachers, and I tell our teachers this: if something is not going right in your classroom, you stop everything and you pray. You get your students and you pray over that classroom if something is not going right. We use biblical principles throughout the day, even with disciplinary procedures. We implement the word of God, we implement Christian values. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always preaching that, teaching that to our children, throughout the day. And so, if you hear that all the time, it is going to impact you.
Right.
And we've had students and families get saved
Wow.
that, yes, to start attending our church. Again, we're evangelistic.
Mm-hmm.
Our second school that we've opened, a young man, I really believe in him, and great young man that wanted an opportunity. And I saw it as, what, this is a great opportunity for me to present Christ to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's qualified, put him in that position. And now he and his family is attending our church.
Wow. I love
Yes.
that.
And,
I
and,
think other pastors need to hear that,
yes,
that
yes.
the potential that's there and the ministry opportunity that this is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And whoo, you said it right there. Ministry opportunity. Yeah,
Right.
to reach unchurched people.
Right.
It's
Yes.
a great ministry opportunity.
I love talking with you because you totally get this. It's like preaching to the choir here. So,
yes,
but when I'm talking with some other school founders, they hit resistance when they are, wanting to share with their pastor or their congregation. They feel like maybe it's not seen so much as a ministry. And I view these school founders and educators who are offering Christian education as missionaries, a sort of missionary rather than going overseas. And so often, if you think about it, churches will have these special projects or a budget, where they designate some funds for missions. And it's oftentimes it's to help start a school in another country.
Absolutely.
Or to send students so that they can attend a Christian school somewhere. And I'm thinking we need to bring this home. We need to bring this right here in Kansas and provide these scholarships and sponsor a school and provide scholarships for students.
Yes. And a lot of churches, they have or say they have an outreach program and or a missions program. You're exactly spot on, that we send all this money overseas and looking for a project and the impact that it would have. And they have outreach events or ministries within their local church. And I see it, a school, what better outreach program
I know,
into the community
right,
than to educate its children. And by doing that, again, you're going to have families come into your church. You're going to have families join your church. And that's one of the things that I always did when I met with everybody in the beginning. I did not meet with them at school. When they did their enrollment, when they did everything, I had all of our meetings at church.
Wow.
And I would tell everybody, we meet at church, we meet at church, we meet at church.
Wow.
And so it was a while before they stepped into the school building. And that was done purposely, to just get them introduced to the church, let them know for sure, I am a pastor. This is ministry for me.
Oh, I love that.
And so, if pastors and church leaders, and, you don't have to start with 25, 30 kids.
Right.
If you could get 2, 3, 4, 5 children in one of your Sunday school classrooms, and use that Sunday school space for Monday school, Tuesday school, Thursday school, Friday
exactly.
school.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. And so when you started your school, was the term micro school even around? Was that really a thing?
It was not a thing. The way that it's kind of like technology, how fast technology has moved. And when we started our school 10 years ago, we never heard of the term micro school. There was homeschool, private school, Christian school. And then a few years later, micro school became it, and it just started growing and spreading. But never heard that term when we started.
Well, what excites me about that is that it's such a simplified model. It's low
Yeah,
cost. It doesn't need all of the overhead. You don't need all of the administration that would be with a typical, a lot of times when churches think of starting a school someday, private Christian school, they think of those traditional brick and mortar, very costly because you've got, the administration, you've got all the teachers for every grade level,
yeah,
and everything. And so this micro school, more of this one room schoolhouse, multiple ages together, a small size with one teacher. I
yeah,
feel like that is so doable. To me, that's more scalable as well
yeah,
for churches. And it takes away that angst that I think that some pastors have,
yes,
that they don't want to take that first step because they're thinking, I don't know, this is too daunting. I can't start a school, but
yeah,
they can start small.
yes, absolutely. And had I known about micro schools 10 years ago and how to start a micro school, we would have did it like that,
Mhm.
because having a second facility, man, you got two facilities now with utilities and insurance and all the cost of that,
Yeah.
and when I look back, we were really a micro school. We
Hmm.
started with 8 students.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, we
You
started
were.
with 8 students
Wow.
and multiple grades. We had kindergarten, first, second, in one class, and third, fourth, and fifth in another class.
I love
Five
it.
students in this one, 3 students in this one, and teachers working
Wow.
together. So we were a micro school, but we didn't know it because the term was not being used then.
And you were meeting in this full school building, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
And so with a pastor, a church leader that already has a facility, yeah, the overhead is
Hmm.
so minimal,
Yeah.
with a micro school. They may even have someone in their church that has that passion for it, and
Mhm.
they may volunteer their time,
Yes.
or they could take a very low salary
Right.
to help out. And I'm telling you, it will be so worth it and see
Yes.
the lives change.
And what a blessing for families.
Yeah,
So I often share that I was able to attend a private Christian school as a child, but that was only because my dad taught in the school. And so it made it affordable. We had a discounted
yeah,
tuition rate. And so my dad teaching there provided this quality Christian education for my brother and I. But a
yeah,
lot of families do not have that option.
yeah,
They can't afford these more costly Christian schools. And then again, in my situation, I'm a homeschooling mom currently. But then there are times when you just want support, you want relief, you want somebody else to
yeah,
come and assist in that work. So
yeah,
even these hybrid models, some churches are, opening their doors maybe 2 or 3 days a week,
yeah,
and the families are learning at home the other days. So there's just so many varieties, so many different ways to do this, which I think is great.
absolutely. Yeah, and you said it all right there with the hybrid model. And
Hmm.
I've told pastors, you don't have to do it 5 days a week. It
Right.
could be a couple of days a week. And like you said, giving a homeschool mom or homeschool family a break,
Yes,
where
please.
the church, yeah, yes,
Yes.
yes,
So,
the church takes that 2 or 3 days a week,
right.
and the benefit of it again, um, when we look at ministry and we look at it from the lens of ministry,
Hmm.
rather than I'm taking on this additional responsibility. It's ministry. It's what I feel we should be doing.
Right. Now, I didn't prep you for this, and if you're not prepared to share, that's fine. But I think I overheard conversation that you do have plans to help other pastors to launch schools. Is that correct? Are you currently kind of
Yes,
helping with that?
yes. I am on an evangelistic, um, tour, or whatever you want to
Wow.
call it. And I'm talking to all pastors. I'm talking to faith leaders, to
Amazing.
look into this
Yes.
and use your facility,
Hmm.
people within your church. I'm educating them on the laws in their state where
Great.
there are scholarship opportunities available.
Mm-hmm.
I'm teaching them how the school, some churches are really struggling financially,
Mm-hmm.
and they could look at that school. It could help them
Right.
financially. So I'm trying to teach pastors and faith leaders this. I'm working with a group now in Baltimore, Maryland,
Okay.
and I have letters from those letters from denominational presidents. Uh, I've got letters representing over 100 churches
Oh
in
my
Baltimore
goodness.
that are
Wow.
requesting an urban prep academy there.
Wow.
And so we are looking at the
Mm.
25-26 school year and launching an urban prep academy there. Now, what we were doing was looking outside of the church for space.
Mm-hmm.
But I finally convinced them, let's look at churches. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know anybody that has space in their church where we can launch? And so, yes, working with pastors, trying to encourage them, show them a model, help them to do it.
Great.
I've got others in Texas, in Arkansas, Maryland, Illinois that are really looking
Great.
at this.
Okay. So you've taken on kind of a coaching mentorship role as well then with
Yes,
this.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Oh.
that's why I was so excited when you shared heroes with me. And I'm like, wow, God is so good.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
he? I mean, I'm telling you, he is really up to something big.
Yes,
I
yes,
I think it's just amazing. I mean, what he's doing in you and impressing on you and the work and the experience. And then as I continue meeting various founders and educators and they tell me their story and they tell me what the Lord is doing and impressing on them, I
yeah,
just keep putting all the pieces together and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, if you're here and you're there and you're doing this and he's doing that and everybody's like working on this together, it's
yeah.
huge. It's a huge movement.
It is. It is, and God can see so much further down the road than we can.
Right.
And He knows what's coming. We get a glimpse of it. We see how things are happening within the public school system, and so many families that are looking for options,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't know what to do. And so as faith leaders, as pastors, we're supposed to be that voice, that guiding
Mm-hmm.
voice to lead them and guide them, and unfortunately, a lot of pastors don't know of the opportunities
Mm-hmm.
um, and the school choice movement that has gone on
Mm-hmm.
that will help families with tuition assistance. Here in
Yes.
Kansas, we were blessed and we fought in Topeka, we fought and we prayed, and so many people prayed and we fought and we got the tax credit scholarship for low income students
Right.
passed. There's other states that have choice opportunities that will help families. And
Mm-hmm.
whether they attend micro school, Christian school, private school, there are some great opportunities to help with scholarships.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that I'd really love to highlight. And I think I shared with you, we're doing a documentary to kind of highlight a lot of these faith-based schools and what they look like. And some of them, again, are just like they say they're a Christian school and they market themselves that way. And others are simply private schools or micro schools that are started by Christians.
Yeah.
But there's so many different ways to do this, including funding models. And that's one of the things I just really want to raise awareness of these possibilities and not be judgmental or critical one way or the other.
Yep.
But to see like, okay, how are you doing this? And if it means you are using tax dollars or you're using state funding and in other states where they have those options, what does that look like for them? What can we learn from this? Because there are some people who are really resistant to the idea and
Yeah.
and very much hesitate, or they'll say I'll never do that. Okay, but let's talk to those who are doing it and how it's working for them, and let's learn from them, and let's see. So what would you have to say to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're spot on with that, because that's what I hear a lot is that, well, we don't want the government in our business, or there should be a separation with church or state, or with the shekels come the shackles,
Yeah.
and things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But these laws are not designed to shackle the church or to interfere with its mission. You know, we've had great success with the tax credit scholarship
Mm-hmm.
program, and we have great bookkeeping. It's accountability. That's what I love about
Sure.
it, is the accountability piece, the reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
nobody is interfering in our mission. Nobody's interfering in our
Okay.
business. We get to teach what we want to teach. We get to
Okay.
preach Jesus if we want to
Wow.
preach Jesus.
Wow.
We get to bring whatever Christian curriculum we want in, whatever speakers, however we want to do it, and it's not interfering with it, And these choice programs give the church, the family, the micro school, they give them the opportunity to really fulfill their mission. I understand the fear, but I go to the word of God. The word says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
Mm.
And a lot of times they just don't know or understand how these programs work. So people
Sure.
with that knowledge uh, sit down and do presentations, teach them, lead them,
Mm-hmm.
guide them, help them get set up, coach them through that. I'm part of a national organization. That's what we do with faith-based leaders. If
Okay.
we go into a community and we gather faith-based leaders, we
Mm-hmm.
teach them the laws of that state, these school choice laws, educational
Hmm.
optional laws of that state. And we teach them how to navigate those things. I believe
Okay.
we're the only training organization for faith-based leaders, for faith-based organizations.
Really? That is
Yeah, and
very
it's
interesting.
Curious Ed, Kurious Ed.
Okay.
And you Google that and you'll see our mission with that.
Are you one of the founders of that organization, or?
I'm one of the founders. I'm always founding something.
Hey, I'm right there with you. 4 years, all of a sudden, I've got 4 organizations,
Yeah.
nonprofits, for-profits.
Yeah. There you go. Visionary.
I know, that's what I was going to say. If I could
Yeah.
describe you
Yeah.
as you're talking, I'm like, man, I love meeting other visionaries.
Yes. That's something that I wrote down on my notes too, is when we talk about churches, congregations, pastors, and the body of Christ and getting involved, I put that down, that the pastor has to be a visionary
Mm-hmm.
to see how this is going to affect its congregants, community, and they don't have to be the one to run the school.
Mm-hmm.
They can delegate that to
Right.
someone that has that passion, has that burden in the school.
Right.
But for them to be that visionary and spearheading that, piercing the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
so that children can get that great education that they
Yeah.
deserve. Yep.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, that is a very important quality to have. So I could go on. I think we could just talk for hours.
Yeah.
And we need to. We need to just get together and do that.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
so I would just love to hear of ways that you feel like what are some specific areas of need that your school has, and how would you like to see the body of Christ surround you and support you even more?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the number one things for community is just community support from the churches. And we did this for a while. We had a few churches, and I had a guy I trained, and we would talk to churches to let us come in on Sunday morning, and we would give a 5 to 10 minute presentation on
Wow.
Sunday morning.
Great.
That was huge. So
Wow.
that type of community support.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the school has programming, or even if a church does not directly have a school, it can be involved in a Christian school, helping build that Christian school.
Absolutely.
Working together,
Mhm.
pooling their resources, supporting, whether substitute teaching
Right.
or community events,
Mhm.
community awareness about the school.
Mhm.
Those things are huge
Yeah.
for a Christian school, for people to get the word out. And then, of course, the number one thing that everybody talks about is funding,
Right. Mhm.
with that. But community support from the churches, just uh, proving that they believe in
Mm.
what this church school is doing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think I know I've told you about the Hero Project. And again, that stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization.
Wow.
And we have three specific calls for the church,
Mm.
invitations for the church to get involved in Christian education. Number one would be to host a school in their facility. Number two would be to sponsor an existing faith-based school that's already there, in their neighborhood, likely. And then number three would be to offer scholarships for students to attend these Christian
Wonderful.
schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again,
Three
it's just there.
powerful initiatives. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's opportunity there. And I think
Yes.
the goal of the Hero Project and with the documentary we'll be highlighting like what do some of these positive, successful partnerships between churches and schools look like? What can we learn from each other, and different models that we have and even
Yes.
funding models, what works, what's happening, this movement, just to highlight the growth of this. And again, God is up to something big and we're telling the story of what he's
Yes.
doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you're doing with the Hero Project, the faith-based schools initiative, making them aware of it, because in the beginning, that's how it was. The church educated the community.
Right.
And even now, there's so many of our colleges, our schools that were faith-based.
Right.
We owned this thing.
Right.
And
Yes.
now I believe God is calling us back to take ownership of it.
Yes. And
So,
the Catholic Church has actually done a pretty good job historically of
yes,
having their schools, Catholic schools.
yes,
They're really good at that. And the
mhm,
Lutheran denomination as well. They're very
yes,
intentional.
mhm,
Historically, they have been very intentional in
yes,
starting schools and educating their children. And I think the rest of the Protestant churches and evangelical churches, like, we need to get on board here, like.
yes, we absolutely do. And you say that, and that's who I stuck close by in our early years was the Catholics.
Oh, okay.
And I saw what they were doing, and
Mm-hmm.
so, boy, they are not afraid, and they are unapologetically uh, Catholic and doing this thing and educating their children. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to step up to the plate and do it too.
Right.
As a
Yes.
Protestant, as an evangelical, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so great. Well, it's always so encouraging to hear from
Yes.
you and to learn about the work that you're doing. I appreciate it. I'm sure you don't get told enough what an important job you're doing and how great this
Thank you.
work is, the
Thank you.
ministry. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for helping others to do something similar and coaching them in that and encouraging that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. And I remember the first WISE meeting I went to,
Mm-hmm.
I was so relieved to hear about WISE and
Mm-hmm.
all the other micro schools and schools that were in the room. It was such a relief to me. And I'll say this too, for faith leaders too, never see it as a competition.
Right.
We're all in this together. And when I saw that room, I was like, wow, this is incredible. We need
Yeah.
to continue growing this. This is amazing. So thank you
Yes.
for what you're doing. I wear my WISE t-shirt with pride.
Oh, I love it.
and people see it, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about whys.
That is so great. So great. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Moore. I appreciate it. And thank you for being with us. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining in. Pastor Moore, if they want to learn more about your work, your school, and your efforts in coaching or mentoring, how can they get in touch with you?
Wonderful. So you can go to our website, which is Up Academy Wichita, upacademywichita.org, or you can go to Facebook, and you can find us on Facebook, Urban Prep Academy Wichita and Urban Prep Academy South. You can find us there on social media.
Great.
So would love to hear from you all and see what you're doing and see how we can help out.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of Wise and Otherwise. We'll see you next week.